Hello, welcome to the next module in the National Self-Represented Litigants Project, Saskatchewan School for Family Litigants. I'm Alan Kilpatrick, co-director of the Law Society of Saskatchewan's Legal Resources Department. I'm pleased to present the next module in the course, Doing Your Legal Research. What is legal research? In a nutshell, legal research involves searching for and finding laws and verifying that those laws are still good law. Here's the overview for this module. In the first part, we'll review the critical foundations you need to understand to do your own legal research. In the second part, we'll learn about researching the law by reviewing sources of legal commentary and a website called Canly. Before we begin, I encourage you to review this module alongside two key resources from the National Self-Represented Litigants Project: the Canly Primer, Legal Research Principles and Canly Navigation for Self-Represented Litigants, and Reading and Understanding Case Reports, a guide for self-represented litigants. Today's presentation cites and builds on the information presented in these resources. You'll see specific page references to both resources on the lower right of the screen if you would like to refer to these documents directly. Please note that I'm not a lawyer and I'm not providing legal advice. Everything contained in this presentation is legal information. Legal information differs from legal advice as it does not interpret information for specific circumstances. This presentation is not a comprehensive resource for individuals representing themselves in court. It introduces some fundamentals to help you get started with your legal research. I encourage you to seek the assistance of a lawyer. The Find Legal Assistance Directory is a searchable directory of lawyers licensed to practice law in Saskatchewan. The tool includes the ability to search by name, organization, gender, location, language, area of law, service model, and pricing and payment model. Limited scope legal services and legal coaching. This is where a lawyer is hired to handle only part of a person's case or for a specific task. Some lawyers offer legal coaching, a type of service where a lawyer helps with strategies and tools to present a case as effectively as possible. Limited scope legal services can be a more affordable option because the client decides what services they will pay for. There are options for free legal assistance in Saskatchewan. These include the Family Law Information Center. Lawyers at the Family Law Information Center can provide free family law information and coaching over the phone, by email, or at in-person help sessions to anyone regardless of income. They don't provide legal advice or representation, but can support individuals representing themselves in a family law proceeding. The Legal Aid Commission of Saskatchewan provides free legal advice and full representation to low-income individuals who cannot afford a lawyer for family and criminal law matters. Eligibility is subject to a financial test. Pro Bono Law Saskatchewan provides free legal advice and representation for all legal issues for persons of limited means who do not qualify for legal aid but cannot afford a lawyer without financial hardship. Eligibility is subject to a financial test. Survivors of domestic and sexual violence in Saskatchewan are eligible for 2 hours of free legal advice. The Listen Project is a resource for people who are survivors of domestic and sexual violence, that is, those who have experienced unwanted sexual contact, harassment, or exploitation. The program provides victims with up to 2 hours of free information and advice from a lawyer trained in trauma-informed response. Individuals can apply online by phone, or email. We'll start by covering some basics you'll need to know to conduct your own legal research. What the law is, how the court system is structured, about precedent, and about legal citation. If you dive into legal research without understanding these fundamentals, you may quickly become overwhelmed and unable to differentiate relevant results from irrelevant results. What is the law? When we talk about the law, we're talking about primary law, which is legislation and case law. The law related to your case is going to determine what you need to present to the judge in the courtroom. Legislation is the law made by our elected representatives in the Federal House of Commons or a province's legislative assembly. Legislation can be passed to make a new law, amend an existing law, or repeal an existing law. Legislation changes through amendments, so it's important to look at the most current version of legislation. There are three main types of legislation. Bills are proposed laws that have not yet passed the legislative process. Statutes are also known as acts. These are written laws passed by the government. They deal with a specific subject and express a broad set of principles. For example, the Family Maintenance Act. Regulations are a type of subordinate legislation. They provide details about a specific statute. They're always attached to a particular statute. For example, the Family Maintenance Regulations. Case law is also known as common law or judge-made law. Case law comprises the written judicial decisions of judges in court cases. Some written decisions are published online and made available through websites like Canly, which we'll be looking at today, where they can be accessed and read. Decisions that are published are also called reported decisions. Not all court cases result in a written decision from a judge that is publicly published. Cases that don't result in a written decision and aren't publicly published include cases occurring by jury trial, cases involving issues that are only of interest to the parties involved, and cases that are settled out of court before they even go to trial. Sometimes decisions are written by the judge and are only provided to the parties directly involved. In these cases, the judge feels that a written decision is important for the parties. However, the judge feels the issues are only of interest to the parties. How do legislation and case law interact? For some areas of law, like family law, for example, the legislation sets the framework and lays out the law upon which your claim must be based. The language used in legislation may be somewhat general, and there may be room for some interpretation about how that legislation should apply to a specific situation. In the courtroom, judges will often interpret legislation and decide how it will apply to a specific legal situation. The intention of the government that passed the legislation may also be relevant for a judge in determining how to interpret the legislation. Canada's court system is a hierarchy that features different levels. We're going to focus on what's inside of this red rectangle. In every province, there will be a provincial court, a superior court, and a court of appeal. Each court level handles different issues and has a particular place in the hierarchy. Understanding this structure will help you identify the most important case law during your research. There are three levels of court in Saskatchewan. The Saskatchewan Provincial Court handles most criminal matters, youth justice, bylaws, traffic court, and small claims court. The Saskatchewan Court of King's Bench handles the most serious criminal matters, most family law matters, including divorce and any civil matters over $50,000. And the Saskatchewan Court of Appeal is the highest court in Saskatchewan. It hears appeals on all civil and criminal matters. The Court of Appeal also hears constitutional questions. Finally, the Supreme Court of Canada is the final court of appeal for courts in Canada. Case law develops through something called precedent. This requires that judges follow the previous decisions of other judges from that same court level or a higher court level in their province and the Supreme Court of Canada on the same legal issue. This means that a court decision is binding for all subsequent decisions by that court or for courts at a lower level in that province. Precedent means that the law develops as a case moves upwards through the hierarchy of the court system, and that a higher court can override or confirm the decision of a lower court in the hierarchy. Most family litigants will have their case heard at the Saskatchewan Court of King's Bench. The party who loses or who is dissatisfied with the result may want to have the Saskatchewan Court of King's Bench decision reviewed by a higher court, the Saskatchewan Court of Appeal, in the hopes that it will be reversed or changed. The higher court can either change or uphold the decision of the lower court. Not every decision can be appealed to the Saskatchewan Court of Appeal. Often you need to ask for permission to appeal. This is called seeking leave to appeal. An appeal is not a new trial. There are no witnesses and you cannot present new evidence. The Saskatchewan Court of Appeal decides if the lower court made the correct decision or a mistake in applying the law to your case. It may be possible to appeal the decision even further if a party is dissatisfied with the Saskatchewan Court of Appeal decision to the Supreme Court of Canada. The Supreme Court of Canada is the final court of appeal for all courts in Canada. Again, leave to appeal must be sought, and the Supreme Court of Canada only hears a few cases each year. Supreme Court of Canada decisions are binding on all courts in Canada until a future Supreme Court of Canada decision changes that decision. Precedent can be binding, meaning that it must be followed. Supreme Court of Canada decisions are binding on every court in Canada, including itself. Supreme Court of Canada decisions provide the rule of law for future court decisions in Canada until that decision is changed by a subsequent decision at the Supreme Court of Canada. Saskatchewan Court of Appeal decisions are binding on every court in Saskatchewan, including itself. Saskatchewan Court of King's Bench decisions are binding on the Saskatchewan Provincial Court and itself. Saskatchewan Provincial Court decisions are binding on itself. Precedent can be persuasive, meaning that they are not required to be followed. A decision from another province's court may be influential. For example, a decision from the British Columbia Court of Appeal is not binding on the Saskatchewan Court of Appeal. A decision from the Ontario Court of Justice is not binding on the Saskatchewan Court of King's Bench. And a decision from the Alberta Court of Appeal is not binding on the Saskatchewan Provincial Court. What does precedent mean for you? Understanding precedent is important because it allows you to spot the more influential cases. Generally, precedent means that you will want to search for cases at the highest court possible for your jurisdiction and the Supreme Court of Canada. Court cases decided at the Saskatchewan Court of Appeal and the Supreme Court of Canada will be the most influential for your own case. I encourage you to review these sections from the Canley Primer, Legal Research Principles, and Canley Navigation for Self-Represented Litigants, and the Reading and Understanding Case Reports, a guide for self-represented litigants, to learn more about the importance of precedent. Next, let's learn about legal citations. During your legal research, you will find many references to laws in legal books, cases, and legislation. Every case and piece of legislation has a citation. This is the identifying information for that law. Understanding how to read a legal citation tells you a great deal about the where and the when of the law before you even read it. You'll use the citation to share the law and refer to it in your court documents. A case law citation identifies information including the court name, date, and names of the parties. Here's an example. JL versus TT 2023 SKKB 35. JL is the plaintiff, the party initiating the legal action. TT is the defendant, the party defending against the action. The V stands for versus. On the right is a neutral citation, 2023 SKKB 35. 2023 is the year the court made its decision. SKKB is an abbreviation for the court level this case took place at, the Saskatchewan Court of King's Bench. This is followed by an ordinal number assigned by the court. Each level of court in Canada will have a 3 or 4 letter abbreviation to be used for the legal citation. You may want to refer to a specific paragraph in the written decision where a judge makes a particular reference or point. To do so, include a pinpoint reference. For example, JL versus TT 2023 SKKB 35 at para 4. Here are some additional case law citation examples. These are family law cases. However, these are examples to demonstrate different types of citations. F versus N 2022 SCC 51 is a Supreme Court of Canada case. DTD versus TAJ 2022 SKCA 34 is a Saskatchewan Court of Appeal decision. Yawachuk versus Oakes 2003 SKQB 124 is a Saskatchewan Court of Queen's Bench decision. Cases that occurred before Queen Elizabeth's death will use this abbreviation. We have already seen JL versus TT 2023 SKKB 35 and Amy versus Omot 2015 SKPC 8 is a Saskatchewan Provincial Court decision. Recent cases in Canada use standardized neutral citations like this. Canadian courts began using neutral citations in the year 2000. You may come across older forms of citations that look different than this during your research if you find cases older than the year 2000. A statute citation identifies information about a statute that will help you locate it, like the statute title, date, province, and chapter number. Here's an example. The Family Property Act, SS 1997, Chapter F-6.3. SS is an abbreviation for the Statutes of Saskatchewan. This is a Saskatchewan statute passed by the Legislative Assembly of Saskatchewan. The Family Property Act is the title of this statute. 1997 is the year the statute was passed or became law, and then the chapter number of the statute. Every statute has a chapter number assigned when it becomes an official law, Chapter F-6.3. You may want to refer to a specific section of a statute. Statutes are arranged by numbered sections. Simply indicate a specific section reference in this way. The Family Property Act, SS 1997, Chapter F-6.3, Section 58. Here is a second Saskatchewan statute, the Age of Majority Act. Note the RSS abbreviation. This is an abbreviation for the Revised Statutes of Saskatchewan. The important thing to understand is that both SS and RSS indicate a Saskatchewan statute. Here are 3 additional examples of Saskatchewan statutes. The Automobile Accident Insurance Act, Revised Statutes of Saskatchewan, 1978, Chapter A-35. The Children's Law Act 2020, SS 2020, Chapter 2. And the Family Maintenance Act, SS 1997, Chapter F-6.2. Citations for federal legislation are structured the same way. Here are 3 examples. The Accessible Canada Act, Statutes of Canada 2019, Chapter 10. The Divorce Act, Revised Statutes of Canada 1985, Chapter 3, Second Supplement. And the Family Orders and Agreements Enforcement Assistance Act, Revised Statutes of Canada 1985, Chapter 4, Second Supplement. The key difference to note is that federal legislation has a different abbreviation after the statute title, SC, Statutes of Canada, or RSC, Revised Statutes of Canada. I encourage you to review the Canadian Open Access Legal Citation Guide to learn more about legal citation. Now that we've covered the foundations, we're ready to begin reviewing the law. In the next portion of the module, we'll review sources of legal commentary and a law website called CanLE. There are 2 broad categories of legal information, primary law, and content written to explain, summarize, or analyze the law. This is called legal commentary. Legal commentary includes things like books, dictionaries, guides, encyclopedias, and online content written by legal experts. It will provide a general explanation of an area of the law and will highlight the leading primary law, legal terminology, and legal concepts you should be familiar with. The first step in any legal research journey is to begin by reviewing legal commentary as well as any court documents or forms you have. During this review, make a note of any important keywords, phrases, or legal citations you find. You'll use these terms and citations when you begin to create searches for the CanLE website. There are several key sources of family law legal commentary in Saskatchewan that you can consult during your research, and we will have a brief look at each. The Public Legal Education Association of Saskatchewan, the Government of Saskatchewan, the Family Law Handbook, the Saskatchewan Law Courts, and the Law Society of Saskatchewan Law Library. Saskatchewan's Public Legal Education Association is a non-profit organization that provides a free website with plain language legal education to educate, inform, and empower Saskatchewan residents through law-related information. Their website offers articles about common legal topics and focuses on the law in Saskatchewan. Their content is also available in print format, such as brochures, flyers, and booklets, in libraries and community centers across the province. You can also order free print copies of their content through their website. Notably, they have 2 sub-websites that provide focus specifically on family law, the Family Law Saskatchewan website, and legal information for newcomers, the Newly website. The Public Legal Education Association's Family Law Saskatchewan website is a resource for people going through a separation or divorce and representing themselves without a lawyer. The site offers comprehensive family law legal information, a court form wizard utilizing interview-style questions to direct users to applicable court forms, a step-by-step guide, and an agreement maker feature. The Family Law Handbook for Self-Represented Litigants, created by the Canadian Judicial Council, is a good starting resource for self-represented family litigants appearing in any Canadian court. This is a useful guide that provides a holistic overview of family law from the start to the end of the process. The Government of Saskatchewan's Family Law Information Centre, operated by the Saskatchewan Ministry of Justice, provides family law information and court form guidance through its website, over the phone, and at in-person help sessions. They provide self-help kits, which include the forms and instructions people need to represent themselves in family court on their website. They also have a plain language video series on their website that provides an overview of family law issues. The Saskatchewan Law Courts website is the official web presence for Saskatchewan's 3 levels of court: the Provincial Court, the Court of King's Bench, and the Court of Appeal. Their website provides information on each court level, videos, a legal terminology glossary, and help guides for self-represented litigants. Our final source of legal commentary is the Law Society of Saskatchewan's Saskatchewan Law Library. The Law Society of Saskatchewan provides the province's publicly accessible law library system. Their team of legal information experts can help members of the public navigate legal information, find legal commentary and resources, or conduct research in person, over the phone, and by email. They have 2 library locations located in the Regina King's Bench Courthouse and the Saskatoon King's Bench Courthouse. Their staff can provide guidance in accessing reliable legal information, assistance in navigating legal resources, and connection with organizations that provide legal advice, including free or low-cost assistance. Once you have reviewed legal commentary and identified key terminology, phrases, and legal citations, you're ready to use this knowledge and to search for primary law using the CanLII website. Next, we'll learn about using the Canadian Legal Information Institute, or CanLII website, to conduct legal research and locate the law. The CanLII website provides free online access to Canadian court cases and legislation through its easily searchable website at canlii.org. The website provides access to more than 1 million court cases and legislation from every province. It aims to provide complete coverage of court cases from 2000 to the present. What kind of content will you find on CanLII? Primary law from every province. This includes published case law that resulted in a written decision from a judge and legislation. So let's begin learning how to use CanLII to research the law. Here is the CanLII homepage. All your searches will start from this page, and let's review the key features of the layout. We have 3 search boxes at the top of the screen. The keyword search box is the first search box. You can use this if you're unsure of what you're looking for and want to use keywords to describe what you're trying to find. Below this is the known item search box. You can use this if you know the name or citation of the case or legislation that you're looking for. Below the search boxes are links to browse or search the law by jurisdiction. And at the bottom of the screen, you'll see a link to legal commentary. Canley offers access to a collection of free legal commentary. I recommend that you begin your search using the search bars at the top of the screen rather than the browse menu below. Once you conduct your first search from the search boxes at the top of the screen, you'll then have the opportunity to filter and narrow the results displayed by content type, by jurisdiction, and by a variety of other ways. We'll learn about 3 primary ways of using the Canley website for legal research. Searching for a case, including noting up a case and finding a case from a particular judge. Searching for legislation, including noting up legislation and finding unknown legislation, and keyword searching. Finally, we'll put this all together and I'll suggest a general search strategy that you can use for your legal research. Let's get started. Let's start by learning how to search for a particular case on Canley. Let's try to find a case called Stein versus Stein, 2008, SCC 35. Based on the citation, we know this is a 2008 decision from the Supreme Court of Canada between two parties named Stein. The best way to find a known case is to search by the neutral citation. However, you can also search by the names of the parties. Let's place the names of the parties in the known item search box, Stein versus Stein. Alternatively, we can place the neutral citation, 2008 SCC 35, in this box. Once we start typing, Canley anticipates what we're searching for, and the case will automatically pop up in the dropdown. Clicking on the name of the case here opens the case with a complete written decision. There's a lot of information here, and all cases on Canley will have this same format and appearance. Let's review how a case is structured on Canley from the top of the screen to the bottom. We have a search bar that allows you to search within this case using keywords, a navigation bar for this case, providing a variety of functionality, the citation and other identifying information for this case, a permanent link or URL for the decision is here, and you can use this link to share this case in your own court documents. My Canley, which allows you to save this case, set up a variety of alerts, or share this case. The names of the parties, Stein and Stein. The names of the judges. A decision is typically written by a single judge. However, it can be written by multiple judges. The written decision's author, where the authoring judge explains how they reached the decision that they did. And the dissenting author, and this is where a judge disagrees with the decision made by the majority of the judges. Finally, on the top right, you have the option of opening this case in PDF. Scrolling down the screen, we will see a summary of the case, also known as a headnote or a digest, with topical keywords, and a brief summary of the key facts, principles, and rules involved, and the outcome of the case. Continuing to scroll down the screen, we see the cases cited, legislation cited, and commentary cited. These are the previous cases, legislation, and commentary that the authoring judge has referred to in this written decision. The procedural history of the case, describing the history of this case since it began in a lower court level. And the beginning of the written decision. This is the start of the decision where the authoring judge explains how they reached the decision they did, citing previous cases, legislation, and commentary. In a written decision, all paragraphs are numbered like this. And on the right side of the screen, for each paragraph in a written decision, you will see a pencil icon like this. Clicking on the pencil icon opens a pop-up menu that provides you with options to annotate, copy, and share this paragraph. Continuing to scroll down the screen, you may come across a heading called Analysis. Here, you'll find the legal principles, other cases, and other legislation that the judge is discussing in this decision. And throughout this written decision, you'll see many references to other laws made by the judge. These are called in-text citations, and they will often summarize the legal rule or principle in that case or statute. It's helpful to pay attention to these in-text citations because they'll often provide you with further information about the legal principles being discussed in this case. Scrolling to the bottom of the case, you may see a heading called Conclusion, describing the outcome of the case. This can also be titled Disposition. As you scroll through a case on Canley, you may also notice this heat bar on the right side of the screen. This is generated by AI, where the color is darker. The AI is indicating that more significant analysis and discussion occurs within this case. And this can help you more quickly arrive at the most significant discussion within the written decision. Let's return to the top of the case. As you can see, a written case law decision can be quite long. In addition to scrolling through the full written decision as we have just done, Canley provides a variety of functionality to make it easier to understand what happened in a case. This navigation bar at the top of the screen makes it easy to learn much of the information we just scrolled through. History. The History tab provides a complete history of this matter from lower courts to the present with links. When reviewing a case on Canley, check this History tab and look for the highest court to which the case has been appealed. Cited Documents. The Cited Documents tab provides all documents, previous cases and legislation cited in Stein v. Stein with links. Canley Connects. The Canley Connects tab provides a summary or analysis of a case written by a member of Canada's legal community. Lawyers, legal scholars, and law students can sign up and write case summaries for Canley. These summaries can be helpful. However, you should keep in mind that the content available through Canley Connects is written by external authors, and you should evaluate the purpose, objectivity, and verifiability of this content. Finally, AI analysis. Some cases on Canley, including cases from Saskatchewan, have an AI analysis tab. Clicking on this tab creates an artificial intelligence generated plain language summary of the case with helpful information about the facts of the case, procedural history, submissions from the parties, the legal issues involved, the disposition or outcome of the case, and the judge's reason for the outcome. This can be a very helpful way to understand key aspects of a case. However, this is artificial intelligence, and you should confirm the accuracy of the information generated here. If you're interested in learning more about how to read a written case decision, I encourage you to review this section from Reading and Understanding Case Reports, a guide for self-represented litigants. Now that we know how to find and read a case on Canley, let's learn about noting up a case. Noting up means verifying the case has not been reversed on appeal, criticized by subsequent cases, or overruled by subsequent cases. Noting up can also be called finding judicial considerations or finding citing cases. The process of noting up a case will lead you to other, more recent cases that address the same principles and situations. So let's note up Stein versus Stein, 2008 SCC 35. Let's return to the case and direct our attention to the navigation bar and to the Treatment tab at the top of the screen. The 160 here indicates that 160 subsequent documents have discussed or referenced Stein versus Stein in some way. So let's click on Treatment. Doing so brings us to a page that lists all of the documents that have subsequently cited the case we're looking at. Canley's algorithm sorts the citing documents into total citing documents, 160, those citing documents that feature the most significant discussion of Stein versus Stein, 38, and those documents citing Stein versus Stein unfavorably, 1. So let's click on the Discussions tab here. And here are the 38 of 160 documents that Canley's algorithm has identified as featuring the most significant discussion of Stein versus Stein. You'll notice the blue and yellow jalapenos to the right of each result in the results list. Canley uses jalapeno icons to suggest the level of intensity with which these citing cases discuss Stein versus Stein. The more jalapeno icons, the more intense the discussion. And a yellow jalapeno suggests an unfavorable mention of Stein versus Stein. If you find a relevant case during your legal research that seems to match your situation or involve relevant legal principles, you'll want to note up that case to verify that the case has not been reversed on appeal, criticized by subsequent cases, or overruled by subsequent cases. And again, the yellow jalapeno suggests some sort of unfavorable treatment has occurred. Noting up a case with Canley's Treatment tab, as we have done, is also a good way for you to find other, more recent related cases that deal with similar facts, principles, or situations. If Stein versus Stein appears to be a useful case, you can use the Treatment tab to find other cases citing Stein versus Stein addressing the same principles. Please note that these jalapeno icons are also generated by an algorithm. They do make it easier for you to get to the citing cases that most substantially discuss Stein versus Stein or mention it unfavorably. However, this is an algorithm, and I would encourage you to determine whether the information indicated by the jalapenos is accurate. Now, note the link on the top right of the screen, search for all discussing documents. Let's click on this as it's a great way to find more related cases. Selecting this link takes us to a CANLI results page displaying all 160 documents that cite or reference Stein versus Stein. Now, every results page on CANLI is going to appear like this. And from a CANLI results page, you have many options to sort and filter the retrieved results, which appear on the bottom of the screen. The search filtering bar indicates that 147 of the results are cases, 0 are legislation, and 13 are commentary. Let's click on cases to limit the results displayed to cases. Alternatively, the documents displayed in the results list could be limited to legislation or commentary. Doing so limits the citing documents to just the 147 cases that cite Stein versus Stein. And from here, you have many options to filter and narrow the cases displayed in the results list. Remember that the system of precedent means that court cases decided at the highest court level in Saskatchewan, as well as at the Supreme Court of Canada, will be the most important in influencing the outcome of your own case. And CANLI's search filtering options can help you find the more important cases quickly. First, we can limit the results displayed by jurisdiction to Canada Federal and Saskatchewan. Next, we can limit the results displayed by court level to decisions issued by appeal courts only. Then, we can limit the results displayed by date, and we'll select date to the past 10 years only. Finally, we can choose how to display the order of results, and here I'll decide to sort these results so that the most cited cases appear at the top of the results list. Now notice the filtering options that we've selected are now in bold in the search filter bar. Jurisdiction has been limited to federal and Saskatchewan. Court level has been limited to appeal level courts. Date has been limited to the last 10 years. And the results have been sorted so that the most cited cases appear at the top of the list. Below this, we can see that there are 3 results, 3 cases from the Saskatchewan Court of Appeal that match this criteria. And at this point, we could select one of the 3 results, review it, and if if that result looks potentially relevant, we could note it up as well and go on to find even more related cases. Alternatively, we could return to the full text of Stein versus Stein itself. And recall I mentioned that for each paragraph, you will see a pencil icon. And clicking on that pencil icon provides you with several options, including one you'll note that says citing documents. If an individual paragraph in a case appears especially relevant, here I've clicked on the paragraph icon for paragraph 6. I may want to note up paragraph 6 specifically. Clicking on citing documents in the tab that appears here, will take us to a Canley search results page displaying those citing cases that cite paragraph 6 of Stein versus Stein, and I can see that 7 cases cite paragraph 6 of Stein versus Stein. If you're interested in learning more about noting up a case, I encourage you to review this section from Reading and Understanding Case Reports, a guide for self-represented litigants, to learn more. Next, you may want to find cases that have been decided by a specific judge. For example, let's locate recent family law cases from Saskatchewan Court of King's Bench Judge Daniluk. For this search, we will return to the Canley homepage. Now, we don't have a particular document in mind this time, so we're going to use the keyword search box, the top search box. So we'll enter the judge's surname, Daniluk, followed by a comma and a J. And this is typically how the authoring judge is indicated for a Saskatchewan decision. We're also placing this within quotation marks because we want to search for this as an exact phrase. Anytime we do a keyword search for a phrase that is more than one word, we're going to need to put that in quotation marks so that Canley knows to search for it as an exact phrase. Now, we will click on the magnifying glass search icon on the right to complete the search. And we can see that this search retrieved 496 results. By default, Canley searches will retrieve all possible document types, cases, legislation, and commentary from every jurisdiction or province in Canada. First, let's limit the results that are displayed in the results list to just cases by clicking on the Cases tab in the search filter bar. This narrows the results displayed to the 486 cases this search retrieved. Now, we can use the search filtering options to further narrow the results by jurisdiction, court level, date, and in a variety of other ways. Let's click on the Subject tab in the search filter bar. Canley includes a search filter option that allows you to limit the results displayed in the results to those matching a particular subject. So let's click on Family. We may also want to see the most recent decisions from this judge. To do this, we can sort the results by newest so that Canley automatically displays the most recent decisions at the top of the screen. And here are 42 decisions matching this criteria. You'll see that the text we placed in the keyword search box is bolded in the results list that appears. Now, note, if you were to review these results here, not all of these would be by this judge. You'll find decisions here by other judges that are simply referring to decisions that Justice Daniluk has written. Now, if we scroll down the results list a bit, let's select one of the results and open it. And here is a decision by Justice Daniluk. What you're looking for here is the surname followed by a comma and a J at the beginning of the decision. And this is indicating the authoring judge, Judge Daniluk. Next, let's learn how to locate legislation on Canley. It's important to be able to locate and review the legislation that applies to your case. Remember that in family law, legislation sets the framework upon which your claim must be based. Review your court documents, court forms, and legal commentary to identify the legislation that may be relevant. You can locate legislation by searching for the name of that case or by browsing by province. So let's locate the Family Property Act, SS 1997, Chapter F-6.3. From the CanLII homepage, let's enter the name of the statute, the Family Property Act, in the Known Item search box, and it will pop up in the drop-down that appears. Alternatively, we could select Saskatchewan from the list of provinces below to browse through an alphabetical list of legislation in Saskatchewan. Clicking on the name of the statute, the Family Property Act, SS 1997, Chapter F-6.3 here, opens a copy of this statute. All legislation, like case law, has the same basic format and appearance. So let's review how a statute is structured on CanLII from the top to the bottom. We have a search bar that allows you to search within the statute with keywords, a navigation bar, the currency date, indicating this is the current version of the statute, My CanLII, which you can use to save the case or statute and organize your research, the title of the statute, the Family Property Act, the citation of the statute, Chapter F-6.3 of the Statutes of Saskatchewan 1997, a list of all amendments made by the Government of Saskatchewan to this statute, and finally, you have the option of opening the statute in PDF on the top right of the screen. Scrolling to the second page of the statute, we find a detailed table of contents for the statute. Scrolling to the next page, we find Section 1, which restates the Act's title, the Family Property Act, and Section 2, which provides definitions for key terms used throughout this statute. Section 2 is called the interpretation section. For example, you might note that child is defined very specifically for the purposes of this statute. Continuing to scroll through this act, we'll see here that legislation is organized into parts, numbered sections, and lettered subsections. In section 4 here, you can see that we're in part 3, possession of a family home or household goods. Section 4, right to possession. And section 4 contains 5 subsections A to E. At the end of each section, you'll see an amending footnote. Remember that legislation often changes as it is updated or amended. And the footnote after each section highlights any amendments that have been made. Let's return to the top of the statute. As with a case, the navigation bar provides several options. Versions. The Versions tab provides links to the Act as it appeared at different points in time, back to 2004. Because a statute is often changing through amendments, it may be important to see exactly how this Act appeared at a certain point in time. Regulations. Now, this act does not have any regulations, and if it did, they would be indicated here. Remember that regulations are a subordinate type of legislation connected to a statute and adding details to that statute. Amendments. The Amendments tab lists all amending acts that make changes to the Family Property Act. We also saw these amending acts listed on the title page of the Family Property Act. And AI analysis. Some legislation on CanLII, including legislation from Saskatchewan, has an artificial intelligence or AI analysis tab. Clicking on this creates an AI-generated plain language summary of the Act. As you can see, this provides a brief overview of the Act, followed by a section-by-section breakdown, and this can be a very helpful way to understand a statute. This is artificial intelligence, and I encourage you to confirm the accuracy of the information created by this AI. Now that we know how to find and read a statute, let's learn about noting up legislation. For legislation, noting up means checking that you're looking at the most up-to-date version and checking if and how that legislation has been interpreted, applied, and discussed by judges in cases. Remember that in court cases, judges may discuss the meaning of legislation, clarify vague legislative language, or fill in gaps that legislation does not address. It's important for you to note up the legislation that applies to your situation and to find court cases that have cited and discussed it. As with noting up a case, this process is going to lead you to cases that refer to the legislation applying to your situation. So let's note up the Family Property Act, SS 1997, Chapter F-6.3. Let's return to the statute. We can see that this is the most current version of the Act. Here, in the navigation bar, we can see cited by followed by 888. This indicates that 888 documents have discussed, referenced, or cited the Family Property Act in some way. So let's click on the Cited By tab here. This brings us to a page that lists a small selection of the documents that have cited the Family Property Act. We'll want to click on Search for all citing documents on the top right of the screen. Selecting that link takes us to a CanLII results page displaying all 888 documents that discuss or refer to the Family Property Act. Note that this results page looks the same as the other results pages that we have seen on CanLII. And as before, we have lots of options to sort and filter the retrieved results. The search filtering bar here indicates that 764 of the results are cases, 51 are legislation, and 73 are commentary. Let's click on Cases to filter the results displayed to just case law. Doing so limits the citing documents to the 764 cases that cite the Family Property Act. As before, we can use the filtering options to narrow the cases displayed on the screen. For example, first, we can limit the results displayed by jurisdiction to Canada Federal and Saskatchewan. Next, we can limit the results displayed by court level to decisions issued by appeal courts only. Next, we could click on the Subject tab and narrow the results to just cases or content dealing with a particular subject. Here, I'll select Family. Now, I'll choose how to display the order of results. And now I'm going to sort the results so that the most recent cases appear at the top of the results list. Now note the filtering options we've selected are in bold in the search filtering bar: jurisdiction, court level, subject, and sorting by newest. 70 cases match this criteria. These are 70 appeal level cases from Saskatchewan and federal courts on family law, citing the Family Property Act. With legislation, we may want to know how specific sections have been interpreted and applied by the courts. For example, I may want to know how sections 4 and 5 of the Family Property Act regarding possession of the home have been interpreted and applied by the courts. To do so, you can direct your attention to the section filter on the right and select a particular section or sections from the search box. In the dropdown, I'll select sections 4 and 5 and click on the search button. Doing so, I find that 3 Court of Appeal cases match this search criteria. Appeal level cases dealing with family law and citing sections 4 and 5 of the Family Property Act. From this point, we may want to review these results, and we could note up the results. Of course, doing so may lead to more related cases. Next, what if we don't know the name of the legislation that applies to our situation? The best way to identify the legislation that applies is to review any court documents you have, as well as legal commentary. Is any legislation referenced or discussed in this content? If you still can't identify the name of the applicable legislation, you can do a keyword search on Canly to find legislation that uses those keywords. Let's use Canly to identify the Saskatchewan legislation that addresses the decision-making responsibility of parents. For this search, we don't have a particular document in mind, and we'll use the keyword search box. In this situation, I've reviewed the Public Legal Education Association of Saskatchewan website, and I've learned about the legal phrase decision-making responsibility, and I want to know what statute discusses this phrase. I'll place this into the keyword search box. Again, this is being placed in quotation marks so that Canly searches for this as an exact phrase. Now I'll click on the magnifying glass search icon to conduct the search. Doing so conducts the search and retrieves 2,680 documents that include the exact phrase decision-making responsibility. The results include case law, legislation, and commentary from every jurisdiction in Canada. So let's filter the results using the search filter bar. First, we'll filter by jurisdiction to Saskatchewan, and then we will select legislation as our document type. Doing so limits the results to just legislative documents from Saskatchewan. This includes current legislation and legislation that is no longer current. Legislation that is no longer current is called repealed legislation and is no longer the law. The results list also includes regulations. So at this point, we should click on the All Legislation tab in the search filter bar and then select Consolidated Statutes. Consolidated statutes means the current version of the act, which is what we want to look for. The other options listed in this drop-down here refer to different aspects of legislation. Doing so displays these results, 10 consolidated statutes that contain the exact phrase, decision-making responsibility, that we placed in the keyword search box. And in the results list, I'm going to go ahead and click on the first search result, the Children's Law Act 2020, SS 2020, Chapter 2. This takes us to the act. Now, when we do a search from CANLI's keyword search box and then access a document as we've done so, you'll see a drop down on the top right of that document that will allow you to immediately be taken to the locations within this document mentioning your keywords. So clicking on the down arrow here takes us directly down to the first instance of this phrase, the table of contents for this act. And here we can immediately see that decision-making responsibility appears to be a major focus of this act in parts 2 and 5, suggesting this is likely the statute that we are looking for. The final way we'll learn how to use the CANLI website is keyword searching. And this can be a helpful way to use the CANLI website if you're not starting from a particular case or statute. CANLI allows you to conduct searches using keywords to retrieve cases or legislation. You'll use the keywords, concepts, and terms that you learned about during your review of legal commentary and any of the other cases or legislation that you've already looked at to generate keywords for keyword searching. Here's a simple strategy for keyword searching that you can use to make your CANLI keyword searching straightforward and effective. The basic CANLI keyword searching strategy is to cast your net wide, then to use as many different terms as possible. From that point, you can narrow, refine, and filter the results that are displayed. In this strategy, step 1 is to take your situation and brainstorm all of the keywords, terms, and phrases that you can think of. The second step is to sort all of those keywords into distinct concepts and to group synonyms of those concepts. The third step is to use these concepts and synonyms to create a search query for Canley's keyword search box. And the fourth step is to conduct the search, review the results, and revise the search if needed. Now we're going to proceed to step 1 for our basic demonstration scenario. Am I entitled to child support for a child over the age of 18, currently attending full-time university, and living at home? My ex wants to reduce or stop paying support. So the first step to creating a keyword search for this scenario is to brainstorm for keywords. And here is what I have just by picking out the key ideas directly from this scenario. Child support, child maintenance, adult child, age of majority, over 18, college, post-secondary, university, variation of support, changing support, reducing support. Now, some of these are keywords I've come up with on my own. Others are legal concepts that I've read about in legal commentary and other cases and statutes. Again, this is where our review of legal commentary and other law will come in handy. We're going to use this knowledge to help generate keywords for Canley keyword searches. In the second step of our keyword search strategy, we need to group our brainstormed keywords into distinct concepts as best as we can. So here's what I've come up with. Concept 1, child support. Our situation has to do with child support. Concept 2, adult child. The child in question is an adult child. Concept 3, university. The child in question is attending university. In concept 4, variation. The ex wants to change or vary the child support amount. Now, a concept may have more than one synonym or way to express that concept. So, for example, concept 1 might also be expressed as child maintenance. Concept 2 may also be expressed as age of majority or over 18. Concept 3 may also be expressed as college or post-secondary. Now, the next step is to take these distinct concepts and synonyms and create a search query for Canley's keyword search box. To do this, we'll need to review Canley's search operators. Unlike Google, which can be searched with natural language, Canley works most effectively when you use search operators. And here are the key ones to know about. We already know about exact phrases being placed within quotation marks. For example, child of marriage. Placing text in quotation marks forces Canley to search for documents using that exact phrase. The next search operator is the AND operator. AND is used to separate different concepts like robbery and weapon. Using AND forces Canley to only retrieve documents that contain both terms and is going to narrow a search and retrieve fewer results. The next search operator is the OR operator. OR is used to separate synonyms of the same concept, such as knife or gun. Using OR forces Canley to retrieve documents that contain either of the terms, but not necessarily both, or is going to broaden a search and increase the amount of search results. Synonyms of the same concept separated by the or search operator should be enclosed within brackets like this: armed or weapon or knife or gun. Now that we understand these search operators, we can move to the next step and create a search query for CANLI's keyword search box. This is the form that a good keyword search generally takes. In this form here, 1, 2, and 3 are distinct concepts separated by the AND search operator. Now, each of the distinct concepts may have multiple synonyms or ways to express that concept. So, for example, 1A or 1B enclosed within brackets, 2A or 2B enclosed within brackets, 3A or 3B enclosed within brackets. Using this formula, here is our first attempt at a keyword search query for CANLI. Now, in this first attempt, we've used 4 distinct concepts separated by the AND search operator: child support, adult child, university, and variation. We're using the AND operator to separate the distinct concepts, as we want all of these concepts represented in the document that the CANLI search retrieves. The first 3 concepts include synonyms separated by the OR operator and enclosed within brackets. We're using the OR operator to separate the synonyms because we don't need all of the synonyms represented in the search results. We just need at least one of the synonyms for each concept represented in the search results. Now we're ready to head back to the CANLI homepage and do this search. From the CANLI homepage, we'll place this search query in the keyword search box. Then we'll click on the magnifying search icon to execute this search. And here are the search results for this search. The search has retrieved 1,686 documents, 417 cases, 72 pieces of legislation, and 197 pieces of legal commentary from all jurisdictions in Canada. First, we need to decide what type of document that we're looking for. So we're going to pick cases. And here we are, 1,417 cases. Obviously, this is far too many results for us to review. So how can we proceed at this point? So once you conduct a keyword search on CANLI, look at the number of search results that have been retrieved. And here are some search tips for dealing with too many or too few results. Did you receive too many results? If so, your search may be too broad. You can filter the search results using CANLI's search filter bar. You can add another distinct concept to the search query, or you can remove some synonyms from the search query. If there are too few results retrieved, your search may be too narrow. You can remove filters from the search filtering bar. You could remove a distinct concept from the search query, or you could add more synonyms to the search query. In our situation here, we have retrieved too many results. Returning to this results screen, I've used Canley's search filter bar here to filter the results by jurisdiction to Saskatchewan, court level to appeal courts, date to the last 10 years, subject to family, and I've sorted the result list so that the most cited cases appear at the top of the results list. And this has resulted in 7 cases matching this criteria. Alternatively, instead of using the search filtering bar, we could have added another concept to the search query in the keyword search box. This would have also reduced the number of results retrieved. Now, once your search results are at a more reasonable level, your next step is to review the results and determine if they're relevant or helpful to your own case. So how do you do this? How do you determine which case law or content is going to be most relevant and helpful to your own case? To learn more about this, I encourage you to review these sections from the Canley Primer, Legal Research Principles and Canley Navigation for Self-Represented Litigants, and the Reading and Understanding Case Reports, a guide for self-represented litigants. Now that we've reviewed how to locate and note up case law and legislation with Canley, let's put it all together. Here is a good general strategy for your legal research. First, start by reviewing legal commentary in your court documents. Note the keywords, phrases, terminology, and legal citations that you come across. Next, identify the legislation that applies to your situation, ensuring that you find and look at the most current version of that legislation. Next, note up the specific legislative sections that apply to your situation. Define citing cases discussing those sections. Use Canley's search filter bar to narrow the results displayed to recent cases at the highest possible court. Next, review those cases and note the judge's references to other cases or other legislation. Consider noting up these cases in legislation to find even more related cases addressing the same legal principles. Finally, conduct a keyword search using all of the phrases, terms, and concepts that you have identified from commentary, legislation, and other cases. Now, this is a general search strategy, and it may not apply to all research situations. However, this is a good general strategy to help get you started with your legal research. This brings us to the end of this session, and we've covered a great deal of content: legal research foundations, researching the law by looking at legal commentary, and by using the Canley website. As we end the presentation, I'd like to mention that I'm indebted to the following authors whose work I cited for this presentation. The Bora-Laskin Law Library has a good website called Legal Research for the Public Researcher. I reviewed a presentation by law librarian Annette Demers called Doing Your Research. And I reviewed 2 resources from the National Self-Represented Litigants Project: the Canley Primer, Legal Research Principles and Canley Navigation for Self-Represented Litigants, and the Reading and Understanding Case Reports, a guide for self-represented litigants. Thank you. And this concludes this module of the Saskatchewan School for Family Litigants. I'd like to remind you that you are welcome to contact or visit the Law Society of Saskatchewan's Saskatchewan Law Library. We can provide guidance in accessing and locating reliable legal information, assistance in navigating legal resources, and help connect you with organizations that provide legal advice, including free or low-cost advice. Thank you.